Welcome. This is the video devotional for Wednesday, May 27th. What happens when you're right where Jesus wants you to be, right where He's led you to be? You're doing exactly what Jesus wants you to do, but life still falls apart. That's what the disciples were dealing with in the passage I'm going to read to you from Mark chapter 6, verses 45 to 52. Immediately, Jesus made His disciples get into the boat and go ahead of Him to the other side, to Bethesda, while He Himself was sending the crowd away. After bidding them farewell, He left for the mountain to pray. When it was evening, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and He was alone on the land, seeing them strain at the oars. For the wind was against them, and about the fourth watch of the night He came to them walking on the sea. And He intended to pass them by, but when they saw Him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw Him and were terrified. But immediately He spoke with them and said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Then He got into the boat with them, and the wind stopped, and they were utterly astonished. They had not gained any insight from the incident of the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. Jesus sent the disciples back across the Sea of Galilee only for a great storm to threaten them. The storm was too much even for the seasoned sailors, Peter, James, John, and Andrew. They were in the middle of the sea, meaning no help was around. They were straining at the oars, giving it their level best, only not getting anywhere, to no avail. Have you ever found yourself in those waters? Let's break it down. You're right where Jesus has told you to be. You're doing what Jesus wants you to do. You are not disobedient. Rather, you're obediently following and listening to Jesus. But you still find your life in the middle of a storm. Even though you're a seasoned Christian, you're mature in the Lord, this is too much for you. You're on your own, even with wonderful Christian friends, a pastor as good as me. There are just sometimes it seems like we face things alone. And even though you're doing everything you know how to do, pray, read the Bible, fast, you're even rewatching some of my old video devotionals trying to get some help. Not enough. Not helping. You're in the storm. What do you do then? What can you do then? What hope is there? Well, we know that there's no hope in our feeble abilities, our strategies, or our wisdom. See, the core truth of this passage, this event in the life of Jesus and the disciples, it's not about what they tried to do, could do, or could not do. This is all about Jesus, what Jesus did do, and what Jesus does. He saw them. He saw them in the sea. He sees you. I love how this passage describes this. Jesus is on the mountain praying. The disciples are in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. Geography tells us they were probably about 4 miles apart. Science tells us, because of the curvature of the earth, if you're standing on the shore, you can only see about 3 miles out. Well, Jesus is at a higher vantage point, so He can probably see out further. But remember, it's night. There's a storm, which makes nights much darker. And this boat that He's trying to spot, that He's looking for, isn't an ocean liner lit up for a party. It's a small fishing vessel, probably with no lights, not even a lantern. I don't doubt for a second that Jesus saw them, exactly as described in the Bible. This little fishing boat with the struggling disciples in the middle of the sea. But I think He saw the way God sees. God sees supernaturally, right? God sees despite the barriers, but also He sees in love. And that's how Jesus saw the disciples, in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the storm. And I don't think it's any more far-fetched to believe that Jesus sees you in the middle of your circumstances, in the middle of your dark night, in the middle of your storm. Jesus sees you. You may feel invisible to me, your family, and maybe even your friends, that nobody knows or sees what you're going through. And for the most part, you're right. Even if I did see, I don't know the depths of your heart and your hurt. Jesus does. He sees not just your circumstances, your night and your storm. He sees beyond you trying your level best to survive. He sees through all of that into your heart of hearts. He sees you, not your false bravado, not the masks we wear. And I'm not talking about coronavirus masks, not the fear, not the pain. Jesus sees you. You are seen, and because it's Jesus who sees you, you are known. Well, not only does Jesus see, but Jesus comes to you. Has anyone ever promised to move heaven and earth to help you when you're in trouble? Has anyone ever said, no matter where you are, I'll be there when you call? These are great sentiments. And sometimes our family and friends can come through. There's some great old songs that express this. Marvin Gaye sang, "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." James Taylor sang, "Just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running." When my daughter took her first car to college, it was her sophomore year. It was one of those little cars that young women name. She named it Rico. She loved that little red car. She hadn't had it up there more than a couple months when, on a trip to Columbus, the transmission exploded in the middle of nowhere. I'm so glad she had a cell phone. She called me. Tears and information flowed over the phone as quickly and as extensively as the transmission fluid flowed out onto the pavement. My heart broke that I was 8 hours away. I couldn't get there to help my little girl. It didn't matter how many times I sang along with Marvin Gaye or James Taylor. I couldn't be there. I did what I could. I talked with her on the phone till help came. I prayed for her. I reminded her that she was not alone, but I couldn't move heaven and earth. I just couldn't be there. Jesus saw the disciples, and he could be there. He came to his disciples. He literally walked on water to get to his followers when and where they needed him. Now that's a friend. The one who walks on water to be with his friends when they're in need is your Lord. Not only does he see you in the middle of your need, he comes right to where you are. You see, Jesus can find you in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the storm. Jesus sees you, he finds you, and he comes to you. Just like the disciples in this passage, when you seem the furthest from Jesus, when the night is so dark you can't see your hand in front of your face, he can find you in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the storm. He sees you. When you know you're not going to make it, Jesus is there. He comes to you. He sees you. He comes to you. And then we see that Jesus offers courage. So it was as bad as it could get for the disciples. Middle of the sea, middle of the night, middle of the storm. They were going down. Then they thought they saw a ghost. The verse says they cried out. I wonder if it was the blood-curdling cry of a scream queen in a slasher movie, not that I've ever seen one, or the defeated whimper of one's last breath. Oh! Well, as bad as things were, it just got worse. That's when Jesus is not just there, he speaks. Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid, he says. In the middle of the sea, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the storm, Jesus speaks. He offers hope and help. I love that Jesus didn't tell the disciples to row harder, bail faster, keep up. That's usually my solution. I feel the pressure, I'm stressed, things aren't going well, so I should pray more, read the Bible more, get up earlier, work later, more pressure, more stress, more. No, Jesus spoke words of comfort. In the middle of the sea, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the storm, take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid. The first and last things that Jesus said mean the same things. Take courage and do not be afraid, just from opposite points of view, right? The fulcrum in this is that middle statement. It is I. It is I. Do not be afraid. Take courage balances on Jesus being there. It is I. Why can we be courageous? Why can we reject fear as our ruler? Because Jesus is here. Not because of our labors, our wisdom, or our strategies. Jesus. And here Jesus doesn't even offer his power, his mercy, his love, nor his grace, no gifts. The giver. Nothing from the hand of Jesus. Jesus himself. In the middle of your sea, in the middle of your night, in the middle of your storm. Hear Jesus say, it is I. He is here. He does one more thing. He stills the storm. Notice what happens, though, between the words of comfort and Jesus stilling the storm. He gets in the boat. Jesus sees you, comes to you, speaks to you, and he gets into your boat. He steps right into the center of your sea, your night, and your storm, all the way to get into your boat, your life. This time of quarantine has been difficult. We've missed worshiping the Lord together, studying the Bible together, fellowshipping, even eating out together. Zoom has been a help for those of us who have the hardware and the software to figure it out, but it's not the same. I've missed seeing my new grandbaby. You probably get that because I mention it every week. I've video chatted with my daughter and her family frequently. It's nice. I'm glad for the tech, but it's not holding my newborn grandson, who's now 2 months old. We have the Bible. Thank God for it. Yes, we can call each other and encourage each other, but more than all of that, I hope you can hear Jesus say to you right now, in the middle of your sea, in the middle of your night, in the middle of your storm, "It is I." Only then does the power of the sea, the darkness of the night, the fear of the storm abate. Don't just hear Jesus. Receive him into your boat, into your life. He sees you. He comes to you. He speaks to you. Now receive him into your life and allow him to calm the storm. Whether you're receiving him in to your life for the first time and you're asking him to forgive you of your sins and for all the ways you've kept him out of your boat, out of your life, and you're asking him to come in and forgive you and to come into your life a new way. Or you're a seasoned Christian and you've been with the Lord for a long time, but you just need a new touch, a new experience. This is a new storm, and you need him in your boat in a new way. Receive him. The Bible says the disciples were utterly astonished. I think that's a huge understatement. My guess is Peter hugged Jesus till he cried out in pain for being squeezed too tightly by the burly fisherman who's happy to be alive. I think Matthew, the landlubber tax collector, even stopped feeding the fish hanging over the side, as seasick as anybody has ever been, to meekly thank Jesus. The one who saw from miles away, the one who walked on water, the one who calmed the storm in this passage is the one who loves you, has come to you, is speaking to you, and is ready to come into your life, again, whether for the first time or to re-enter in a new way. Receive him. Receive him. Receive him.